Hello, BookTube. We're going to continue with this Regency section of my library tour just because it's an indulgence to me. Some of you seem to be enjoying it, and I sure as heck am. And I am amazed once again by the value of this little $5 tripod. Incredible. I set it up in its usual position for these Regency tours just a minute ago, and for some odd reason the lighting was making me look horrible and making the whole thing look horrible. It was washing out everything so you couldn't see the titles. And ordinarily, in the normal course of events, before this tripod, I would have had to say, well, I guess it's not going to work then. Here, it's one of those prehensile things, so I just moved it and had it grip something else. So we're going to go through another stack of these Regency romances. For those of you who maybe don't know what I'm talking about these old-style Signet, Avon, and Fawcett Regency romances. Thin things that used to come out several every month that are set in the Regency period of English history, more or less. And deal with Pride and Prejudice style romantic and para-romantic doings among the well-to-do and the comparatively well-to-do. I once derided these things. Back when I derided all of romance novels, I derided these things especially for being just the most derivative, most formulaic of all of what I thought was a completely derivative and formulaic genre. And I have since recanted that opinion. Regency romances are very formulaic. But that's a challenge to good writing, not a barrier to it. So I have found that the ones of these things that are very playful and very enjoyable are where the authors are looking squarely at the limits of those constrictions and making the most of them in the same way that people do with the constrictions of any other type of writing. So I've come around, is what I'm trying to say. So let's see what we have here. Okay, this is, and we're not going to go through this again, right? No, okay. I think I pulled this out just to show you it, but I don't think I talked about it. Did I? Well, I think that we might have seen this one before, but I know that we haven't seen any of the others, so we'll go through it again. That's part of the Regency romance experience, much like the old style British whodunits over in the mystery section of the bookstore, where they're very, very much of a piece. There weren't events. There was no such thing back then as an event mystery novel. So devotees would pop them right down like popcorn, and sometimes often forget whether or not they'd read one. So we'll go through a couple of duplications, but I won't do all of these Regencies, I promise. I won't do all the ones I have. Just a little bit more, just to perk me up. So here we have Alison Lane. I think we've seen her before. This is Duval's Angel, play on Devil. And there are our characters impromptu waltzing around a pond. An artificial lily pond, obviously on a well-to-do estate. With her money scarce, Angela Warren was all too aware that her family could afford just one London season for her to make a match. A single misstep would destroy her chances. An entanglement with a social outcast like Duval Blackthorne, a reputed scoundrel and womanizer, would be a disaster. Yet from the moment Angel spied Blackthorne giving aid to the poor, she believed that the ton, that is the alleged top of society, the cream of the crop, had grievously wronged him. His tender, heartfelt kisses soon had her convinced. Then she began to be courted by a dashing widower, Gabriel Atwater, society's darling and most magnificent catch. Now, amid balls and routs, Angela was being swept into a dangerous cross-current of passion, torn between social acceptance and her heart. And we know what's going to happen as a result there. Atwater will turn out to be either tremendously boring or a villain, and Blackthorne will make good on his reputation. Although a lot of times in these Regency romances, these older style ones, you will have a setup like that where either the man or very infrequently the woman, or more usually the woman's mother, will be the source of social opprobrium, and they will have a black mark against their name that seems ineradicable, and very often, refreshingly so, the woman, if it's the man who has the black mark, will decide to throw her lot in with him anyway and to just not care about society. I really like that. Okay, this next one is another photo cover. This is by Shirley Kennedy, and it's called The Selfless Sister. And there you have two models, essentially photographed in costume, with a little bit of overlay of art. And once again, pointing out that these people don't look like they belong in the Regency period. They look like modern day actors performing a role, especially the man. The men often give it away. Miss Lucinda Linley has seen 5 of her 6 sisters marry, and she always stepped aside as the younger girls made their matches, refusing her own suitors for the good of her siblings, hence the selfless sister. Now, with her father's money spent on too many dowries, she knows a suitable match is unlikely. But when she meets Devon Wyndham, the outcast Lord of Ravensbrook, she finds her heart leaping with excitement. And Douglas Wyndham, and Douglas can barely contain himself in the presence of this woman who shines brighter than the most refined London ladies. But a 25-year-old tragedy divides the two families and threatens to crush their fragile love. And that is always neat, that when an author decides to take that twist, that you can tell from that description what I'm sure will be true in the book, which is that the love would happen anyway. It's not a question of desperation over a dowry, nor anything else. It's just that these two would have fallen in love anyway. That's also a thing that I like in these things. Okay, this is another Shirley Kennedy. This is a novel called The Irish Upstart, which coincidentally enough is also the nickname we have on BookTube for Jason Harrigan. And as you can see, that obviously is Ireland in the background here, the thatched roof hut and an inlet there of an uncommonly cold water. And this is, you can see there's a bit more artwork involved in that cover than in this one. This is probably later. This one is much more photographic. This one is the year 2000, and The Irish Upstart is, oh, it's 2001. Wow. Okay. Well, great. So what do we have here? Oh, County Clare. Oh my. County Clare in 1816. How you can set a romance there, I don't know. Not then. Evelyn O'Fallon is shocked to see the fine figure of Lord Thomas Linbury at her door. Just arrived from England, he bears the news that Evelyn's young half-brother Patrick, born of the dissolute Englishman who stole her mother's heart and spent her fortune, is the heir to a vast estate. But Patrick can only become the next Viscount Montfort if someone accompanies him to England. Suddenly, Evelyn finds herself an outcast in London's high society. No one will marry a 24-year-old Irishwoman, no matter how beautiful. But Lord Thomas's heart rejects convention, and he cannot deny his attraction to the lovely lass. Their souls fired by passion that knows no country. They will find in each other's arms a love that breaks every boundary. So she is the Irish Upstart, not him. And that it probably will be another example of something that we've talked about in connection with these Regency romances, where an author brings in their closest approximation of genuine contemporary politics. That's always interesting when they do that. They don't always. Most of them don't. So let's see here. The next one is also by Shirley Kennedy. This also has a slightly old-fashioned style cover, but this one is a little older. This is 1999. This is the London Belle, which is also coincidentally a nickname that we have for Jason Harrigan. And here we have the two. She has a book in her hand. They are in the ruins. They're in ruins in the English countryside. They would be, of course, in plain view of 100 people if this were true. But Lady Jane Sperling is the eldest daughter of the Earl of Headley, and in her 3rd season. Don't want that. Don't want to end up on the shelf. Her finicky nature and scholarly pursuits, hence the book, have prevented her from complying with her family's wishes to wed her off to some wealthy old man. But now her father's gambling debts have put the entire Sperling fortune in jeopardy, so she has to marry. To help the Sperlings, Lord Dashmont offers Jane employment as a companion and tutor for his son, who still grieves over the death of his mother. Wary of the notorious rake's true motives, she reluctantly agrees. 3 guesses what happens next, and the first 2 don't count. How wonderful. All right, we're forging along here, but it won't be long, I promise. Okay, this next one is Barbara Alistair. This is A Marriage of Convenience, and once again has the guarantee. It's guaranteed fresh on the cover. So you have not already read this if you see it in the new release section of the bookstore. If you see it in the used bookstore or back in the stock of the store, you're on your own. Although retail bookstores never kept back stock of these things. The Regency romances were part of the monthly romance shipment that you got. I handled so many of those monthly romance shipments, so many of them, that's where you would get everything in the Harlequin line. Harlequin romances, Harlequin Presents, the Love Swept books when they came along, the Harlequin historicals when they came along. That's when you would get the romantic thrillers that were then put out by a different publisher, and that's when you would get the Regencies as well. All in one huge shipment, and then you would swap everything out. But all the rest of it, all the older items from that section of the romance section of the bookstore, didn't then get filtered into backstock. They got sent back. So this kind of guarantee actually would have been useful to a lot of the people who were shopping for these things. Beautiful and spirited Jane Stanfield has made her choice between her two childhood friends, the dashing Lord Langston and the devoted Stephen Middleton. She had chosen to listen to Langston's impassioned proposal and turned her back on Stephen's gentle sweetness. That was before her family's ruin wrecked her marriage plans. That was before she was reduced to being paid companion to Langston's mother, while Langston himself had to hunt a wealthy wife in a marriage mart. Now Stephen had returned from abroad a new man, determined this time to get what he wanted, and Langston refused to let her love any man but him, which left Jane to choose once again, having learned all too well that the last thing in the world she could trust was her heart. Oh, that sounds fascinating. So from that description anyway, neither man is a villain. And she actually does have to choose between them. Well, that's that. And oddly, a thread that's been running through a lot of these things is that, oddly enough, money is an active factor. That's usually not true in Regencies, much less 4 in a row. Usually the characters do not have that as a motive, or it's somebody else's money. Some heroine's younger brother who's run into gambling debts or whatnot. But anyway, let's see. Okay, this next one is Barbara Alistair. But this book is in much worse condition. Yeah, this is from 1985. Okay, so A Marriage of Convenience is from 1997. See, so I mean, some of these people made careers out of doing this. This is from more than 10 years before. So the Signet Regency Romance brand looks different, and the cover looks different. It's much more of a painting, and it's also in rougher shape. It's been read a few times. It's a lovely cover, though, and they're not anywhere near London. And no stately home in sight. So let's see. Miss Jane Woodley's lovely person, sparkling wit, and charming manners made her a choice prize for any gentleman seeking a perfect wife. But Jane was also immensely wealthy and very much alone after her father's death. In short, she was ideal prey for an ambitious fortune hunter as well. Now the handsome, dashing, irresistibly magnetic Mark Cortland has stolen Jane's heart and awakened her fears that he is out to steal much more. For it had become clear that this man of mystery was not quite what he pretended. Unless Jane unmasked the truth about his secret life, she might end up doubly deceived. Okay. I must admit, I'm encountering some things here that I really want to read. All right, here we have another Barbara Alistair. This is from 1987. This is The Temporary Husband. It's in really rough shape. I would need to reinforce this before I could read it. There she is outside with a sundial. There's a stately pile in the background. Beautiful Miss Amanda Desmond has no interest in being a wife, for to be a man's possession was a notion that filled her with loathing. Handsome and wealthy Andrew Farley, Lord Mainwaring, detested the idea of marriage, for he enjoyed the pleasures of freedom far too much. But now Amanda desperately needed a husband so that she would not lose the child who was her ward, and Mainwaring definitely needed an escape from the swarm of sirens besieging him in the marriage mart. So they're going to meet through convenience, but then fall in love. and there'll be lots of complications in between. Romance authors love to do that, so that you get the two people that you know are going to end up together. Right away, you get them in usually the first 2 chapters, but then all sorts of complications get in the way, and despite the fact that you know the pattern of these things, a good author will still have you wondering right till the last minute if it's going to happen, when you know that's the whole point of the book. That takes skill. If you think these things are corseted and derivative and formulaic, try writing one yourself and see. It's not easy. It takes skill to do if you're going to involve the reader. So then this will be the last one before I sit down. There's another Barbara Alistair. This is A Moment of Madness. There are our 2 characters on the front cover there. And I don't have it with me now, but you remember that Duke book that we got yesterday. You notice the difference. It's about 15 pounds of difference and several degrees of convexity. And this is just a normal person. The Duke we saw yesterday, part of the Unlikely Duchess series, his anatomy did more than just sit there. But anyway, and there was also a painting of hounds. Oh, very nice. So anyway, let's see what we have here. Are those dogs on the mantelpiece as well? Yes, they are. There are statue dogs on the mantelpiece. So maybe hunting is a factor here. Let's see. Once upon a time, Georgiana Carrington had been an ugly duckling, a tall and gangling girl stumbling awkwardly through her first London season. Now time had passed, and she had grown to be an enchanting beauty. Once upon a time, she had trembled in Charles's arms as this dashing gentleman dutifully led her through the paces of a dance before going off to pursue more interesting pleasures. Now she trembled in his arms again, but this time it was not duty but desire that inspired his embrace. All right, well, I have every single one of those made me want to read it. Every single one. I haven't read any of these. Oh my. Well, this is both the pleasure and the pain of having so many of these Regencies. I got a ton of them the last time I was at the Five Colleges book sale in Vermont. One of you sent me a box completely full of more, so I have hundreds of these things. So there's quite a few that I haven't got to, and they all entice me. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.